Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Just a quick reminder, once again, I will be hosting a live 420 party right here on the Metal Meltdown on April 20th, going live at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So pop on by, say hello, join the motherfucking party, even if you aren't necessarily the biggest fan of Mephisto's mixed green salad, if you catch my meaning, and I'll see you there, once again, April 20th. 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about this killer new record from Bewitcher. Cursed Be Thy Kingdom is the third studio album from American extreme speed metal crew Bewitcher, who describe themselves on Facebook as, and I quote directly, heavy metal at the speed of Satan. And honestly, I'm not sure I could conjure a better summary as to what Bewitcher is all about than exactly that. Their brand of heavy metal buffoonery is every bit as hellish and high octane as that saying would suggest, filled to the brim with tasty riffs, tasty guitar solos, sing-along melodies, and pure rock and roll attitude. And Cursed Be Thy Kingdom is no exception whatsoever. In fact, it appears to build and capitalize on the momentum of their incredibly solid sophomore Under the Witching Cross by expanding in nearly every single area possible in an attempt to make what I have to assume they believe is the nastiest heavy metal record of this modern era. Whether or not it actually is obviously up for debate, but one thing is certain. If you are just looking for some high-octane heavy metal hellfire and stupidity, you really couldn't have gone to a better band than Bewitcher. The general sound and aesthetic here should be familiar to a lot of you already, particularly if you are well-versed in the heavy metal scene of the early 80s. Influences from Exciter, Motorhead, Venom, and very early Slayer are found all throughout this record, as are influences from some of Bewitcher's contemporaries like Midnight, Toxic Holocaust, and Night Demon, the latter of whom's Armand John Anthony, I'm now learning, was also a producer on this particular record. Tracks like Death Returns, Electric Phantoms, and Metal Burner deliver all of the over-the-top heavy metal firepower that one could possibly want from an album of this type, with rambunctious riffs and spirited guitar solos and some very acidic proto-black metal vocals. Satanic Magic Attack in particular is, at this point, destined to be a staple in the band's live set. This thing is just so fucking catchy, it practically demands that you raise your fist, sing along, and pound a couple fucking beers. There are no major deviations from this style to the point where one could argue that the album is objectively somewhat one-dimensional, but I prefer to see it as this album is laser-focused on transporting you through the bowels of heavy metal hell. Which it absolutely does. And to Bewitcher's credit, there are some subtle twists and turns and loop-de-loops found all throughout this roller coaster ride. Take, for instance, Valley of the Ravens, which has a little bit of a Blackened Doom underbite to it, with a really solid, catchy riff that almost brings to mind a weird mishmash of early Ghost and more recent records from Tribulation. Somewhat similarly, the tracks Mystifier and Night of the Wolf are just a little bit more spooky than the rest of the rambunctious heavy metal tunery found throughout this thing. And the album's very opening cut, Ash, is a genuinely cinematic and powerful number with an oddly Western flavor to it that makes it feel like something that could have been off the last Wayfarer record. Again, no major deviations per se, but these little bits and pieces do enough to make this feel very rich and robust and dynamic, as opposed to repetitive and predictable and meat and potatoes, as I would sometimes call albums of this variety. On top of that, the sound mix and the production is just fucking amazing. This is probably one of the best sounding retro heavy metal records that I think I've gotten in some time. The guitars are so clear and crispy and crunchy, they practically leap out of my fucking speakers. And perhaps most impressively, Cursed Be Thy Kingdom is able to deliver all of these nostalgic heavy metal jams without feeling like an imitation of any of the bands we have mentioned in this video. Something that, quite frankly, is becoming increasingly harder to find. Yeah, I really don't have any issues or concerns whatsoever with Cursed Be Thy Kingdom. This is just a really fucking fun record from start to finish. It is greasy, it is violent, it is in your face, it is dark as fucking hell. It's everything that an album of this type needs to be without being overbearing, without being overwhelming, and without overstaying its welcome. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5, honestly. Bewitcher had one goal with this album, and that was to deliver an absolute non-stop heavy metal rock and roll roller coaster soaked in bourbon, blood, sweat, and hellfire, and that's exactly what they fucking delivered. With no compromises whatsoever. There is not a dull track, there is not a dull riff, dull hook, dull moment, dull second of sound on this thing whatsoever. No fat to trim on this particularly juicy, spicy, and delicious heavy metal steak. I would say in the future it would be nice to see Bewitcher perhaps indulge further in some of those black metal influences, or even in some more thrash metal influences, but as it stands right now, again, I don't have any issues or concerns with this whatsoever, and unless you've got a major fucking stick up your ass, you really shouldn't either. Definitely check this out if you are looking for something a little bit more modern, but still embodies the spirit of true heavy metal attitude and party energy. Once again, 4 out of 5, definitely check this out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.